Hello everybody, welcome back to the channel. My name is Steve.
I'm Lindsay.
Today we're going to be reacting to American foods that are banned in other countries. This is definitely one of my favorite topics.
Mine too. It's something we've been interested in for a long time,
Yes.
way before this. But it's pretty cool because there's something going on here in the U.S. Food Babe, I don't know if you've heard of her.
Yeah, I know.
Okay, well, there basically was a big protest outside of Kellogg's cereal in Michigan just recently, I think it was last week, and to call more attention to this topic.
It's not just her though. She's been at the forefront of it, right? But it's starting to gain traction here a little bit. Finally, to start removing some of the junk that's in our food supply,
and only ours,
right?
For whatever reason,
right? It's a massive problem that I don't think a lot of people quite understand. Even here in the U.S., people just ignore this problem or
probably assume it's a universal problem.
Right. Since starting this journey, I have learned more about this than I knew previously. I think a lot of people will be surprised how much I have read about health and nutrition and diet specifically. It's one of the things that I've been very passionate about for a long time. Haven't always applied what I know, but I will say this. The one thing that I've applied for a very long time, and even though Lindsay and I haven't had the perfect diet, through our relationship, what we can 100% say is we've never been the type that fell into keeping lots of the trash food at home.
It's true.
The food we've had at home forever has always been, for the most part, whole foods, high quality stuff. Our issue eating junky, trashy stuff with a lot of artificial ingredients, stuff like that, would have been eating out.
Right.
And that was where we fell
into... on vacation.
Or going on vacation stuff. That was where we fell into the trap of the really horrible food here in the U.S. When it comes to us eating at home...
Yeah, it's not usually an issue.
No, we have been blessed to receive lots of packages with delicious baked goods and snacks, specifically from the UK and Ireland, for the most part. And that's been a blessing because we've been able to try much cleaner versions of what people here in the U.S. unfortunately tend to get at the grocery store.
Yeah, and sometimes compare them to the U.S. version.
Yes, and we compared them, and pretty much always better for the most part, like the chocolate and the biscuits compared to our cookies and things like that.
Yeah, the quality is definitely
much better. So there is no doubt that the food quality in more processed stuff and just the stuff you get from your average grocery store and so forth is much better, at least in the UK and Ireland, than what we have here in the US on average. Now, that's not to say we can't get good quality food here. We can. It's just you have to really pay more attention to ingredients and so forth. But guys, I know this intro is starting to get a little long. We are a little bit passionate about this topic, which is why I'm talking about this so much to begin with. So let's go ahead and jump in here and check out American foods that are banned in other countries.
Most Americans want to believe that the United States is the gold standard of clean food. But that belief may not hold up to scrutiny. From unsanitary practices in mass production to the addition of dangerous chemicals, countries have good reason to give the side eye to imported foods claiming to be USDA approved.
Oh, gosh.
Okay,
Don't even get me started on our fake...
Our government regulation bodies here are horrible. Let's just go ahead and get that out of the way. As a matter of fact, I'd say if it was FDA approved, I would be more likely to avoid it. Because generally speaking, the department is sold out, right? It's the FDA, it's the USDA, others, but those are the main two really that are regulate food and pharmaceuticals and all that type of stuff. So
that's right. This week we're talking about American foods that have been banned by other countries. Since the dawn of Skittles, there have been rumors about the dangers of eating them. Every one of us heard at least one classmate claim that the red ones make you sterile, and the yellow ones, they give you
I never heard that.
Turns out, it might be worse than that. First of all, your classmate wasn't wrong. The dyes known as Yellow 5 and Yellow 6 have been linked to hives and hyperactivity in children. Sweden and Norway have banned the candies out of concern. The European Union will most likely be banning Skittles at the end of the year, having already swapped out some of the dye for more natural flavors. This is because of something called titanium dioxide, which can be found making the colors pop across the rainbow. Research linked titanium dioxide to damaged DNA, which can lead to cancer. While Europe may be ahead of the Skittles awareness curve, America is quickly catching up. In May of 2021, the Environmental Working Group asked the FDA to categorize titanium dioxide as toxic. And yes, before you ask, right now the FDA says it's okay to consume some of that chemical compound.
Which, by the way, we just ran out of our dishwasher detergent that we normally get. It's kind of hard to find because it's a more natural one. And so I was looking for a different one, and I was at Walmart, I think it was yesterday, and I was looking at the ingredients on the just regular Walmart brand powder because I don't want the plastic filmy stuff.
Yeah.
And it had titanium dioxide.
Of course it did.
I'm assuming to make your dishes look like brighter and whiter and fresher, but yeah, so we didn't get that one.
This makes me so angry. It's like, I think, anyone who is awake to this issue that has kids should be angry if you're here in the U.S.
Yeah.
I'm sure most countries have some sort of issues in regard to they're putting certain things in the food supply, using certain pesticides that you may not want, et cetera, et cetera. But here in the U.S., we unfortunately seem to be the guinea pigs for all the junk.
Yeah, inundated with like all kinds of poison.
Yeah, and there's no telling how much that is lowering the longevity of everybody over time and causing all sorts of issues that otherwise we could eat the same foods. Like the same junk foods could be eaten, but people would be a lot healthier if you just remove the things that aren't even necessary.
Right.
All the nonsense. It's just...
It feels purposeful, honestly.
I remember when I've done a reaction about, long before you came on the channel, about like the difference between McDonald's. I think that was the first time I'd looked into kind of the food differences. That was specifically the UK and US, right? And it's just night and day when you look at how clean the French fries, for example, are compared to here. They're the way, pretty much, the way they were cooked long ago, some oil, potato, salt. I mean, obviously back in the day, at least here in the U.S., they would make it with tallow.
Right.
And that's a better oil than a seed oil. I think we can all agree on that, I hope. But nonetheless, you get rid of all the preservatives and mess that you don't need in these fries. And how much better are they for you? But you can eat the fries. It's just, anyway.
You can taste the rainbow, but just in moderation. California is home to an ongoing lawsuit against Mars Inc., the parent company of Skittles. The lawsuit claims Skittles are not only toxic, but are unfit for human consumption. So maybe for now, play it safe. Just go have some Swedish fish instead.
That also probably have red 40.
Ever looked at a piece of crusty French baguette, be it in cartoon or in real life? But let's be honest, it was probably in the hands of Pepe Le Pew, and think, I can't make a sandwich with that. As great as we talk about the invention of sliced bread, a lot of European countries have actually banned much of what you'd find on America's wide grocer shelves. That's
so
because
much
we make a lot of our bread not just with grain, but with a variety snap packs worth of additives. Like azodicarbonamide, for example, which helps bleach flour and strengthen dough. Fun fact about azodicarbonamide, it's also used in a spectrum of industrial products, including yoga mats. Downward dogs. The European Union is really against the idea of its citizens eating yoga mat material and has banned their use in food products.
Why? Right? What's wrong with consuming yoga mats, guys? I don't understand. No, but seriously, like how ridiculous is that? You have an ingredient that's in yoga mats in bread. Bread, what should be the simplest food to create?
And leave it to the American food industry to take something so simple and create something so far from what it should be.
Like I've sat here, I've watched my grandma bake bread her entire life, homemade biscuits and so forth. Biscuits here in the U.S., the fluffy dinner roll type biscuits, not the cookie type biscuits. But also Lindsay would make sourdough bread, fairly often
Or
back in the day.
bread.
Yeah, and it's like a few ingredients. Like, there's no reason for the junk.
If we buy store-bought bread, we usually buy sourdough.
Yeah, it's cleaner.
Yeah.
It just makes no sense unless it's on purpose. Like, there's no reason for it. It's complete junk. There's no reason for all the added ingredients. And one of the things that drive me insane is seeing like a bread or something like that, and then all the vitamins and minerals added back. Why do they do that? Because they take it all out, and then they have to add it back to make it somewhat nutritious.
Yeah.
It's ridiculous.
We could talk all day about
Yeah, we could. This video could be literally 3 hours long because I could go off on this topic. But we won't do that.
No.
Pork.
Pork, the other white meat, is a staple of American meats, along with chicken, fish, and beef. From bacon to ham, hot dogs to pork chops. American meat eaters consume about 67 pounds of pig per person every year.
Wow.
Zooey, my heart is stopping. Don't get us wrong. Other nations indulge in swine just as much, if not more, than Americans. So why doesn't the U.S. export scores of succulent bacon-bearing boars? Well, it turns out America adds a lot of chemicals during processing. Ractopamine in particular is used in many pig farms to raise porkier porkers. Ractopamine, which we put a dash of in a lot of foods, has been banned in 160 countries, which all consider the drug unsafe for human consumption. This, in turn, has led to a prohibition of pork exports across...
Okay, so a little like ractopamine. I've never heard of that particular drug or whatever it is before, but it sounds like it increases the speed of growth.
Probably.
I think that's what I was getting at that. And I know they do that in with poultry and other animals, but it just, you do got to wonder if you consume something that is supposed to speed up growth. Mm-hmm. What does that do for, I don't know, cancer rates in humans?
And puberty for kids.
And puberty, which is very interesting. Puberty seems to happen earlier over the last couple of generations than it's had.
Yeah, it used
before.
to be like 17, 18 years
Yeah,
old.
now it's like 13,
and,
12,
try like
11.
10.
It's insane. You got to wonder if it's... I know it's got to be food supply. It has to be. What else could it be? It doesn't make any sense. Otherwise, you don't have something happening in a person's life pretty much in the same time frame forever, and then all of a sudden, in a couple generations, it changes. Obviously, something is being consumed to make that change.
Across the world.
I'm so thankful we get ours
The EU
from
hasn't touched the stuff since outlawing ractopamine in 2009. China and Russia have been ractopamine-less since 2013. Maybe that's because ractopamine has the same effects as an intoxicant on humans and can cause tachycardia, headaches, and muscle spasms if consumed in large enough quantities. But it is a small price to pay for a perfect piece of the pork.
No, it's not. No, it's not at all. We get our pork and beef specifically from a farm that's right up the road. Delicious, grass-fed,
Grass-finished, everything.
Yes.
Well, pork isn't.
Pork isn't necessarily great, but it doesn't have the same garbage in it. It's clean, right from the farm. I would advise everybody to do that if you're in the U.S. If you have access to it. Which, I mean, if it's just a little bit more... it's a hassle to look for it to begin with, but once you got it locked in, you know your farmer, then it's like you're good to go. You get on text with them even, and I would advise that. You can avoid all the junk.
Hygiene in America often comes down to dousing stuff in a chlorine bath and calling it FDA approved, and chicken is no exception. Pathogen reduction treatments, or PRTs, refer to the use of different chemicals to destroy harmful microbes on raw meat. Somewhere along the line, American food regulators...
What are they spraying in there? Are they spraying that stuff into the... Like...
I'm so disgusted.
Come on. Yeah. Like, what is the point? Like,
well, the point is to extend shelf life.
Yeah, I know. I say that, but I know what it is. It's just...
At the expense of our health.
Yes. I'm just thinking, like, well, it's also to, like, just kill bacteria, and it's like we've had We were faced with bacteria forever on our food.
Yeah, I think the main problem here is that everything is so mass produced now.
Yes.
And it has to travel so far.
Yes.
Whereas I think a lot of problems could be avoided
if it was
in this instance
a
if
local
we eat
area.
locally and
yes, I agree 100%.
buy locally.
You know, because there was a time not that long ago here in the U.S. even that this would have been a thing. You know, you go back, you know, I know, like, you go back to the 50s, definitely this wasn't going on. You were going to your local butcher. You weren't having this mass-produced chicken.
Right, and a chicken looked much different. It was much smaller.
Mm-hmm. Now they're massive, just like the pigs are. Yeah, they're on steroids.
Just decided a quick chlorine shock was the best way to kill salmonella and other bacteria on uncooked poultry. Chlorine marinade.
Oh, that's
and
gross.
It's not that
really
the EU is against taking a long gulp from the public pool now and then. In fact, the risks posed by chlorine consumption are relatively low. The bigger concern is that the chlorine baths are just an eye-burning Band-Aid on a larger problem. The tip of the beak, so to speak. They're worried that the PRTs are insufficient to deal with more than just the normal bacteria and don't get at a potential contamination from things like low-quality feed to unsanitary coops on farms. The EU called the chlorine rinse an easy fix, arguing no chemical rinse will ever remove all bacteria from meat heavily contaminated as a result of poor hygiene.
Mountain
Dew.
Mountain Dew is the closest any soft drink has come to being fully weaponized. But did you know in Austria and Norway, the soda is outright banned? That's because Mountain Dew's signature Chernobyl radiant hue comes from tartrazine, also known as yellow 5. And if your ADHD hasn't kicked in yet, you'll remember that color and number from the Skittles section earlier. It's been linked to headaches, hyperactivity, and the desire to be annoying to other people. Ironically, the qualities that make Mountain Dew a soda non gratis in other countries is exactly what the brand promotes. A frenetic, over-caffeinated lifestyle. Do the do.
I don't know what it is.
Blast.
I don't know what it is about Mountain Dew, but to me that is the trashiest drink that exists.
I tell you what, like, there was a time in my life before I became more health conscious as I got a little bit older and got really interested in, I'm talking about mainly when I was a teenager, I would have like a Mountain Dew and white powdered donuts out of the,
breakfast of
what you call it? Yeah, for breakfast, yeah.
Woo-hoo. And while you might be able to find Mountain Dew in Europe, it's going to hit a little different. That's because Europe spent exactly 2 years in the 90s riding the dew before discontinuing it. What is being sold as Mountain Dew in the EU has a recipe closer to the original carbonated beverage, as created by Tennessee beverage bottlers Barney and Ollie Hartman in the 1940s.
That makes sense.
The original Mountain Dew was meant as a whiskey mixer, with a name coming from the affectionate Scottish term for moonshine. It'll tickle your innards, is what the old ads used to read.
I never knew that.
No lies detected here.
Oh my gosh. What did I just...
Dude, like, why? Why in the world can't they do the same thing here? It just is so ridiculous. So, like, how come the place where Mountain Dew was created can't have it closer to the original version than every other country outside of the place it was made?
Probably profit.
Obviously it is. I know. Or maybe it's more sinister than that. Maybe it really is more sinister than we even believe. Maybe these people...
I think most of it comes down to greed.
Well, here's the thing. What if
they can get away with
What if it's the food industry and the pharmaceutical industry working together to have each other's backs? So they basically poison. Yeah, they poison the American food supply to the point that then people need these medications and so forth.
Interventions.
Yeah. And I think there might be something to that. Like, it sounds a little conspiratorial, but like, what else is there other than that and profit?
Right.
Right? Like, either way, it's ridiculous. Little Debbie.
Little Debbie has been providing Americans with comfort snack food since the 1960s. With their variety of zebra cakes, star crunches, nutty bars, fudge rounds, and cosmic brownies. But their big claim to fame, as anyone who has ever had their lunch
Swiss
packed
cake
by
roll?
a parent can attest, is the Little Debbie Swiss Rolls, a mixture of rich chocolate cake and butter-creamy filling.
They're
Over
sweet.
900 million cartons of Little Debbie products are shipped each year,
Wow.
but none of those cartons go anywhere near Austria or Norway. Blame those rascally additives, yellow 5 and red 40.
It's in everything.
Swiss rolls contain 32 milligrams of dye per product.
What?
That is.
Cake roll?
I was about to say something, and then that shocked me because I was about to say something when he said that. Why?
I know. It's kind of mind-blowing that, like, a lot of white foods actually have, like, the white cream or, like, white vanilla pudding has dye in it somehow. I know. It's weird.
What? Okay, is he saying that this has red dye?
It looks like it.
Yellow
Now I
dye? He
gotta
was just
look
showing yellow
Now we
dye.
gotta look at the ingredients after this, if they don't show it.
That is
Because
wild.
I never knew that.
That doesn't make any sense at all. Like, this is a brownish, dark, black, and white.
Again, this
Cake.
seems like purposeful.
Yeah.
You're going out of your way to add something you don't need.
And in those quantities, they've been shown to have an adverse effect on children. And we're not just talking about causing hyperactivity.
And yet they have this stuff at the
Although one study
cafeterias at
found
school.
that cutting all artificial food coloring from diets may be 1/2 as effective as prescribing kids Ritalin. And while we can't prove there's a direct connection between artificial food coloring and cancer, they do cause damage to white blood cells, causing them to mutate after only 3 hours. Exposure to these dyes could cause tumor cells to multiply way more rapidly. For that reason, researchers say a high chronic intake of food colorings throughout the entire life is not advisable. If only
You
they
think?
weren't so delicious. Surprisingly, you can buy Little Debbie's Swiss roll.
Hold on. I just realized, look at this color. I don't know if it's the way, I don't know
I
if
think
it's
part of
the,
it is the image.
yeah, it might be. It looks a little red, though, now that I'm looking at it. So I don't know if
It
that's...
doesn't look that red, though, in real life.
No, that's true. It doesn't. I haven't seen one forever, but it does. I thought in my mind it looks darker than this.
Rolls in the EU, but they come with warning labels advising parents of the potential dangers to kids.
Oh my gosh,
That's like a
amazing.
cigarette pack.
That's amazing.
Wow.
When you hear the words banned breakfast cereal, you're probably imagining one of the countless kid-focused brands of sugary morsels, like the oh-so-delicious Cookie Crisp. So you might be surprised to learn that it's actually Special K, the most boring cereal on all of the earth,
What?
that has been banned in Denmark and discouraged in the EU. Ironically, because of its supposed health benefits. In the UK, Special K has been put on blast by the Advertising Standards Authority for exaggerating how much folic acid they pack into portions. Though it's
Oh.
still legal to buy in Europe, Denmark has completely banned Special K since 2004 for all
Wow.
its fortified vitamins and minerals. Regulators argue that Kellogg's cereal's unnaturally high levels of everything from vitamin A to zinc actually qualify Special K as a genetically modified organism. Or GMO.
Amen.
More specifically, Special
Wow.
K is swole with the same artificial compounds that studies have shown to potentially pose health risks, specifically to children and pregnant women. In conclusion, you may want to stick with crunch berries. You don't need to take a transcontinental flight to visit countries that have banned American foods. Just drive up to the Canadian border, flash your passport, and sign an affidavit saying you're not smuggling any steak tartare in your trunk. Today, consuming raw meat has fallen out of fashion in the U.S., much like other foods like veal and pâté, which don't make you sick but might make you sad. See, while veal and pâté may be uncool, they're
Ew.
also served hot, unlike tartare, which is chopped up cold meat, straight from the cow. Undercooked or raw foods can lead to an increase in food poisoning.
Yeah, Lindsay doesn't even like a medium rare steak. Shoot, she don't even like a medium well steak. I like my steaks undercooked. Not like I don't like them rare really. I like them like medium rare. I like them with a little bit of blood, but she doesn't. She likes them like where they're like just gray. I'm like, ugh,
I
no.
mean, I'm getting a little better. Like,
You are
I'll have
getting a little-
hint of.
You don't get as mad at me anymore when I undercook your steak ever so slightly, where it's just a little bit of pink in it. She actually can eat that now.
Yeah,
that's better than
about
she
as
used to
far
be.
as I'll go, though.
Back in the when we got together, it's like if it's not burnt, it's not good.
Which I know that the burntness in itself is bad.
It's got to be medium or a little under that to be good. You got to have at least got to be fully pink at minimum. But I'm sure this will be disagreed amongst the commenters on the proper way to eat a steak.
I'm probably in the minority.
I would think so, because, I mean, generally speaking, you can make a well-done steak somewhat moist, but it you know, definitely not as moist as you're going to have it with under that.
Yeah.
So,
parasitic infections, especially in beef and poultry. But considering how fancy pants steak tartare is, Titanic food, one might say, you'd think countries might look the other way and let the luxury delicacy slide.
Mr. B.
And for a long time, they did. In Canada, meat has to reach an internal temperature of 145 degrees Fahrenheit, the equivalent of a medium rare steak, in order to be considered safe to serve. But those rules aren't strictly enforced. That is, until recently.
Ew.
In 2021, restaurant owners in New Brunswick selling steak tartare were all served cease and desist letters.
Wow.
Canadian public health officials had decided that amid the ongoing health crisis of COVID-19, the last thing their citizens needed was a side order of botulism.
Coca-Cola?
Is there anything more American than Coca-Cola? The fizz, the flavor, the former secret ingredient, cocaine. Coke is basically apple pie in beverage form. And it's not just Americans who are cuckoo for Coke.
I hate it.
Invented
I hate
by
it.
a pharmacist in 1886.
My least favorite
Georgia,
drink.
Coca-Cola quickly caught on overseas. It was the World War II GI's drink of choice.
When did they stop adding the cocaine?
I don't know.
Because it was still in
I'm sure
the
I'm sure it would have been a pick-me-up at that point. I mean, obviously. But
sure the cocaine.
Yeah, I'm sure it would have been a pick-me-up. It would have been a morale booster and so forth. But it's one of my it is. I can't stand the taste of Coke. But I think what you would drink now would be completely different from what you were drinking when it was back then. I'm sure it was so much better.
It was real sugar back then.
Right. I'm sure it was actually a much better, overall better drink.
No, it's high fructose corn syrup.
Right. It's just, I think it probably doesn't, I don't think it tastes anything like it probably did at one point. None of these soft drinks do, really, I'm sure.
No, and food either. Really.
But I will say Dr. Pepper is definitely my soft drink of choice. It's something I only ever really, for years now, only time I would ever get one was when I was out at a restaurant. This is something I would never buy at a store and bring home or something like that. It was something if I can get a pizza or a burger, right? It was nice to have a Dr. Pepper with it. But outside of that, I obviously Lindsay and I have cleaned up our diet immensely right now, so we're not consuming any of that stuff. So.
Pre-pandemic, Coca-Cola had 500 brands in over 200 countries.
500 brands?
The best-selling soft drink and one of the most recognizable brands of all time.
That's crazy.
But there will always be exceptions. And unlike the other entries on the list, for once, it has nothing to do with health concerns. Everybody knows that Coke is not good for you. We just decided collectively that we don't care. No, the countries that have outlawed the brand have done so because of what it represents, a symbol of the encroachment of American capitalism.
Oh.
From 1962 to 2011, the U.S. banned sales of Coke to Burma as part of sanctions against the military junta that ruled the country until 2011. It resumed sales in the country in 2012. Today, Coca-Cola is only unavailable in 2 countries with long-term trade embargoes with the U.S. North Korea hasn't allowed Coke since 1950, and the bubbly beverage has been banned in Cuba since Fidel Castro seized supplies in 1962. First the prequels, now Coke.
I think that Coke, one of the reasons it's so popular, I think there's something iconic about the labeling. Mm-hmm. And I think for some reason, even myself, I catch myself seeing that vending machine or whatnot, the label, and for some reason in my head, it kind of makes me want one. And I think it's because, at least for me, it kind of brings back childhood memories in a way. Mm-hmm. And I don't want one. I know I don't, but I for a brief moment seeing it, there's something about the labeling that makes me like it's
iconic.
It is iconic. And I think even for people in other countries, it's still iconic as well because they've been consuming Coke for decades as well. So, I do wonder if part of the sales from Coke isn't so much the taste, but actually the iconicness of the look of it itself. And it brings, you see the look, you remember something, it triggers a memory in someone's head about a happy time or something. I think a lot of foods are like that, honestly. Yeah.
In a twist of irony and lime, Cuba was actually one of the first bottlers of the beverage outside of America. Today, Cuba Cola has replaced Coke as the country's soft drink of choice, though black market sales abound. After all, it is the birthplace of the Cuba Libre, aka the rum and Coke.
I like those. That's the one time I would drink Coke. Is in a rum and Coke. Yeah.
M&M's, the delicious melt-in-your-mouth, not-in-your-hand snacks.
Now look at all the colors.
A collaboration between the Science Sons of the Mars and Hershey dynasties in 1940.
Really? I didn't know that either.
M&M's gained international fans during World War II, as American soldiers popularized the candy overseas as the chocolate that won't get your trigger finger all sticky. But you won't find the candy in Sweden, where it's banned due to a trademark conflict with a popular national candy that also features lowercase m's as its signature. When Mars introduced the candy to Sweden in 2009, a court ruled its marketing too similar to that of the Norwegian Marabous, which resemble Kit Kats.
All right, guys. So this was still an eye opener to me. I learned quite a bit in this video that I didn't know, even though this is something I've looked into somewhat.
Yeah.
And it just goes to show you, here in the U.S., you have to be careful what you're going to be consuming. And this stuff should be consumed in moderation at max.
Yeah.
I feel like in other countries you can consume more of the junky food and get away with it than you can in the U.S. Obvious reasons, because if it's one thing to be like, oh, it's got a little too much sugar or maybe a little more seed oils than you want, but then you add in the junk, the chlorine rinses and the growth hormones they give to the trans fats, the dyes, the preservatives. It goes on and on and on. Safe to say that I envy the food supply in your country. And again, a lot of people assume, looking from outside the U.S., it's like, oh, those poor Americans, they have no access to good quality food that's clean and whatnot. And that's not the case.
No.
We have access to the best food you can imagine, organic stuff, regular bread that's not the cakey bread and so forth.
You're going to pay.
But you're going to pay more for it. It's going to be more of a hassle to find it because it's not just sitting on your shelf. Anyways, guys, thank you so much for stopping by. Please click that like button. Feel free to drop your comments or suggestions about this video or others. And don't forget to subscribe to continue to follow us on our journey to discover anything and everything from the UK and Ireland. Until next time, guys, peace.
Bye.